Hello and welcome to Candid 2.0. I am Kieran Libon, your host. I'm alongside
John Joseph, co-host.
and Candid is a show that allows us to speak to very interesting persons who have a story to tell. However, we just create the platform for them to tell the story and to educate you, our guests and our audience.
And today, with us, we have a very interesting person, like our host said, D'Arcy Rahming.
Yes, he is the CTO of Arawak X. And
Thank you guys for having me. Thank you.
And we thank you for coming. And we will be speaking on topics of crowdfunding, venture capitals, and most importantly, just giving better tips on what is it that we are looking for in businesses when it comes to being able to get the tools that you need. So again, thank you for coming here and joining us here in our studio.
But before we get into all of that, let's introduce our guest, or let him tell us who is D'Arcy Rahming.
So I'm D'Arcy Rahming Jr. There is another D'Arcy Rahming out here.
All right.
So a little bit about my background is so I have an engineering degree, electrical engineering. So I went off to school to the States in 2008, came back home in 2012, joined my father in his management consulting practice. And if you don't know what management consulting is, that's where sometimes a business gets stuck and they need an outside consultant to kind of take them to the next stage of growth. And so they hire a management consultant. So me and Dad did that for many years. And then, we went to, we were kind of, working in the business community, working with others. And then in 2017, the Securities Commission kind of said, hey, we want to bring this thing called crowdfunding here.
Nice.
Industry, consultants, securities professionals, lawyers, accountants, who wants to try this? And me and Dad kind of looked at each other and we said, this is something we can do because we have the skills to do this. It's an internet company, so that's my technology background came in. It's financial, so Dad also has an engineering degree and has his MBA, so finance. Then there's slight economic component. He was also partly a regulator. So we had all the skills. So we said, let's do it. We didn't know it was going to take 4 years and the family fortune to kind of set the thing up.
Wow.
But that's kind of where we were. And during the process of that, it was so many rules and regulations that I just decided to go back to school to fill in those gaps in my knowledge, because with companies and business, and the law is such an integral part to that.
Yeah.
So
I'm especially in finance.
Yes.
Anything related to finance.
Yes. Well, it's about protecting rights and defining more clearly what people's rights are. So I wanted to make sure to have a handle of that. So I have an engineering degree and a law degree. So.
Well, you speak about protecting rights.
Mm-hmm.
When you speak about protecting rights, how does Arawak X help in that, or I guess push that platform?
So we are a regulated marketplace and clearing facility. So if you, so we're a stock exchange. We're just a modern version of it. We're a stock exchange over the internet. And so what a stock exchange does is people just think of the trading part of it, because that's the part that's most commonly used for. But what it also does is it brings money from groups of investors to groups of companies, and then it registers who has what ownership and what rights, and what other secondary and other subsidiary rights are associated with that. It also creates an environment where all of this is transparent and in the open, so that conversations around all of the different aspects of a business can be had in a transparent way. So that's kind of what ArawakX is there for, is to have many more of these conversations in the open about businesses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we do see that these conversations take place. We see you a lot of times in different areas, the different scenarios, just different settings, sharing the same information.
We know this is like recently there's been a huge shift towards stocks, like a lot of amateur stock buying. There's been a huge shift. Everyone's into buying and selling stocks. But when it comes to crowdfunding, how does that differ from just buying and selling stocks? I know some of the viewers out there may not be familiar with what crowdfunding is. So if you could go into some explanation on that.
So we think of crowdfunding as like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, right?
Yes.
That's where it started. A guy has this great product. He needs some money to make this product. And so what he does is he goes out to the internet. So reaches across through the internet, through technology, to find people that would purchase his product before he's made it. And so he has to reach a certain minimum so he could do a run of products, and then he'll deliver them to the customers. Really cool idea. Started to work. Companies started to get the money that they needed to sell those products. And then there was this one company that it did its run, was successful, had really great product buy-in, and then turned around and Facebook bought it for $2 billion.
Wow.
It's called Oculus. You know those goggles?
Yeah.
It started as a crowdfunding company.
Wow.
And so, of course, all of the people that saw that first were like, hey, I should have been allowed to buy shares in this thing because I could have participated in this. And this is around 2010. And so they passed this thing in the United States called the Jobs Act, which is basically regulating equity crowdfunding. So using crowdfunding, but instead of selling product, to sell securities. And that's where the complication comes in, because there's a ton of rules and regulations around securities.
So basically the original crowdfunding, people were basically donating money, I guess.
Donating. So there was the donations. So you still see that when people get sick. Sometimes they do their crowdfund to pay for a procedure.
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. So there's the donation, and then there's what's called the rewards, which is where you're paying for a product before they make it. And then now there's the equity crowdfunding.
So this is the evolution of crowdfunding.
It's an evolution, but it works the same way. You're reaching through the internet to tell your story to people. It's just this version now you're touching securities laws, so a lot more complicated.
And that's where ArawakX comes in.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So I would like to know, how does ArawakX now is able to sustain itself? What is the model? How do you provide the service to, I guess, whoever your target audience is?
This is a great question. This is a great show, business question, right? We're now getting into the nitty-gritty of it. So our business model is what's called a marketplace business model. And that means that you think Airbnb, think Amazon. Amazon doesn't actually own most of the products it sells. It sells products on behalf of other people. Airbnb doesn't own any homes. It sells product on behalf of other people. So what they do is they link up buyers and sellers. And so for us, our business model is about trying to increase the number of buyers and the number of sellers as fast as possible, obviously, so that we can have as many of those linkages, because we get paid when these linkages happen successfully, and then that's how we make money as a firm. So as we link investor to issuer, and we're using technology to make it happen faster and faster. So sometimes the financing of companies has been a notoriously difficult thing historically, and especially in this country. And so we're filling in that gap, that need. So I think we've seen a lot of positive feedback from the community of investors and the community of companies, businesses, issuers. And now it's just about figuring out how to make it a little bit more sustainable and methodical, and from an operations point of view.
Right, because we've seen within since the launch of ArawakX, we've seen...
In August of last year, yeah.
Right, we've seen companies brought forward
Mm-hmm.
for the purpose of being funded.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say that I've participated in each one of those offerings, and I know that some hit well,
Mhm.
some were successful, some were not.
That's correct.
How does this impact ArawakX for
So-
those that did not make it?
So that's a really good point because it highlights a unique part of what crowdfunding is. There's a minimum raise that a company has to hit in order for the company to be deemed successful and to get the money. If that minimum raise is not reached, all of the investors get that money back. And that's a protection for investors because the worst thing that could happen is you say to me, I need $200,000 to go build this building and to stock it, and you get $50,000
You start building.
and it doesn't get off the ground. That's just $50,000 wasted.
Yeah.
So crowdfunding protects against that. Not necessarily because the idea isn't a good one, but maybe the idea isn't at the right stage or we didn't have the right investors looking at it. There's a lot of reasons why it could work. Personally, I think those two companies that were unsuccessful just because the market at the time, this was so new to everybody.
Yeah.
People were asking us in March and stuff like that, hey, can I get into those other companies? I saw they closed.
Yeah.
But it takes time. Financial products take time to educate people as to what they are. And I think we're doing a good job of it, but I expect as the future happens that we have many more successes. I'd like it to be 9 out of every 10 companies that lists on ArawakX to be successful. Why I don't say 10 out of 10? Because 10 out of 10 would mean that we're being too conservative. You always need to have that one those ideas that are at the edge of
Right.
what's possible, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want us to become just a conservative only place. There's some ideas that need a chance.
Yeah.
Well, how would growth happen if you don't take that chance?
That's right.
So it seems that ArawakX is very hands-on, very involved with not only its responsibilities, but the responsibility that it has to the companies that are looking for funding, right? So how does ArawakX support? So I'm a company, let me just put,
Mhm.
I'm a company, I'm interested, I would like to get crowdfunding. How I want to come to ArawakX, walk me through what the process would be.
Okay. So first of all, let me state that we do not own any shares in any of the companies that are listed because our role is to be that of a referee.
Okay.
But that being said, if the referee doesn't do his job right, LeBron James can't do those beautiful dunks and Kobe can't play and the athlete can't shine. And in much the same way, so we have a vested interest in making sure that the players are able to play and the fans are able to be there because, obviously this is for profit. We got to make money too. But I say all that to say, our process is once you have all of your corporate documents in place, we provide you the structure in which to do a successful crowdfunding raise. Our platform actually, because it's fintech, gives you a lot of information and data. And we can actually see in real time when people place orders and what drives those orders. And what we found is that as people do marketing, their orders go up. And so people can actually say, I spent X amount of dollars on this show and I was able to raise this amount of money in real time. And that's something that is it's scary levels of data. And so we share that, of course, with the issuers themselves so that they can, they know which shows to go back on, where to tell their story. Because they only have a 90 days window which to raise this money before we got to give it back.
Yeah.
So we want to give them as much information because we make our money when they're successful.
That's interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we have a unique role in that we have to protect investor rights, we have to protect issuers, we have to make sure that everybody's playing beautiful basketball
Mhm.
so that more fans and more people come, and then over time it's going to snowball into something amazing.
Wow.
So
Well, So now it leads me to ask this: why should I come to ArawakX over going to a Royal Fidelity or some other conventional means to get the kind of funding that I would require?
Well, crowdfunding as an issuer, so we're now talking as a company,
Yes, yes.
gives you the opportunity to reach out to your customer base and invite them to become investors. So think in terms of a restaurant. The guy who has shares in that restaurant, first thing he's going to make sure to do is he's going to eat there more often. He's going to hold his birthday parties there more often. If he's responsible for making sure that the company catering happens there more often, because at the end of the day, he's putting a couple dollars back in his own pocket. So you have the ability now to reach out and get a wide, to really tie yourself into the community, which is you're going to see on your bottom line. And that's something that that we think is unique about crowdfunding. Also, as a business person, we get the certain level of compliance and controls through the transparency of the markets. And so you're able to have more of a nuanced way you're able to run your business a little bit more like the way you would like to. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Has any company put themselves forward looking for crowdfunding that ArawakX had to say no?
We run into hundreds of so we have hundreds and hundreds of companies that approached us, not hundreds that we said no to,
right.
But every so often you get some that's like compliance isn't gonna. So obviously we're regulated, so
Right.
And before any company goes to the crowd, the commission has to sign off on. It's a shortened window of time. It's about 2 weeks. But we have to submit, and they need at least 2 weeks before they're able to go to the crowd. And so we can't put just anybody up, right? So there's still checks and balances on us. That being said, we do not judge the idea. We try to only judge the structure to make sure that this is a legitimate opportunity. These are legitimate business people going after a legitimate market, and so. But that being said, there's some things we won't touch. If it's illegal, obviously we can't touch it. If it's if the founders have some questionable backgrounds, it is the crowd. I mean, just imagine throwing everybody's sins up on the internet, and you just have to understand that people are gonna go at you.
Right.
Which is cool if you're not doing anything wrong, and it's terrible if you've done some terrible things in the past. So I would say that if you are, this is a really good way to engage your customers, and it's a really good way to, be the talk of the town for three months, because as you can see with Chef, he's everywhere too.
Yeah. See, and that is something also because he is everywhere. Like. You know who the new talk of the town is,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to getting or gaining crowdfunding.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to ask now, when it comes to, because I know some companies that would have came, they would have been startup companies who
Mm-hmm.
started to speak about different scenarios. How I should put it, when they now offer themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right, and understanding that they are also in crisis mode.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because startups are like crisis mode also. How do you then, from your knowledge base, be able to educate companies or help, or because I know you have to be very careful on how you interact with them.
Yes.
But how are you able to help them?
If you take a look at the Arawak X executive team, I'm the young executive. Everybody else
The
is.
cool dude.
Yeah, he's the one coming on the motorbike.
No, I can't ride a motorbike. I've been told by Risk I'm not allowed to.
Oh.
But
Wow.
yeah,
it's that deep.
it's that deep. But I will say that all of their experience, they're operators, and so operating some of the largest companies in the Bahamas teaches you how big business works. So you can see, if you know how big business works, and this guy is here, and he could be a big business, he still has to go through the various stages to do that. So we can offer guidance to, and we do offer guidance to our issuers. Sometimes they call and they say, hey, I'm having a real problem getting, my legal down. You got a good lawyer to call. We give them a list of lawyers we work with. Yeah, all of these people are good, straight shooters, etc. I need an auditor. Can you give me a list? So we do that. So because we're touching so many different types of business people all the time, when our issuers come to us, they're actually tapping into our networks as well to not necessarily to we're not paying for them to do any of this stuff. They still got to pay, but half the battle is knowing where to go and which questions to ask, right?
Yes.
And so oftentimes if you see me around town, I'll be sitting down, we'll be having a beer with an issuer or something, because they are a part of us, even though not legally, but this is supposed to be a long-term relationship. And when issuers and companies pick their exchange of choice, I want people to know that, we intend to do not just one raise, we want to do raises with you as your business needs capital, which is all the time, because no matter what size business you are, you're going to need capital for growth.
Looking at it from an investor standpoint, I know you guys have some protections in place pre-success of the company. After the company successfully raised the funds and they receive those funds, what happens in the background? You guys have to, I guess you have to hold them accountable.
Yes.
And from an investor standpoint, in terms of returns, how does that work? Like, is there appreciation of stock, and how's that calculated? Is there dividends, or how does that?
Great question. So, as you know, with equity, it is appreciation of stock and dividends. We are about to spin up our secondary market, which means people will be allowed to then sell their shares in the event of a life event. Now, so that's coming. We're also about to launch our, I like to call it Edgar Jr. If you're really into securities laws, you know what Edgar is. But it's basically a portal where financial reporting and certain types of communications and corporate actions can be communicated to the investor. Our job is not to control the company and how it's going to run. Our job is to provide transparent information for investors and all stakeholders so that they can make decisions as to whether or not they want to be a part of this company. Every company that lists on ArawakX has to have a written dividend policy. And that's them saying, when we hit these certain metrics, we're going to do this with the money. We're going to, I've seen the common one is, we're going to try and keep 6 months of operating capital. When we hit that in our cash buffer, then we're going to start to pay dividends. Because, as you know, things can happen. To be honest, in this COVID era, 6 months might be too short. Yeah. But anyway. Yeah. So those are the kind of things that. So our job is to, and that's what builds trust in the market, is the transparent, free flow of information. Now, obviously, all the information can't be transparent. The guy still has to operate and have a space to make mistakes. That's what it means to be human, and to be running an organization. But it needs to be enough information. I mean, the world has been doing stock markets for 500 years now. I mean, we're just bringing it up to best standards and doing it in a new way over the internet.
Right. That's pretty interesting. Like, I'm sure a lot of behemoths will be able to take advantage of this, because we have more opportunities now. That's all. But there was really not much opportunity to invest in stocks easily outside of the traditional, C-file and those other guys. Yeah. This makes it more accessible.
I agree with you. It really does. And even when you look at other offerings that may have came out in different vehicles, they have where you have to spend a particular amount of money to be able to get a share, compared to now with crowdfunding. These same companies that I grew up with,
we're super, one of the core values of our company is financial inclusion. And people think financial inclusion means that charity. No, I am a capitalist. This ain't charity. None of this is charity.
Right.
But what it means is that no matter who you are, you're allowed to participate.
Right.
And so the guy with the $36 can participate, the guy with the $36 million can participate, and everybody can see a return on their investment.
Right.
Now, will they be treated the same? No, they have different needs, they have different expectations, but they can participate.
Right.
And so we use technology to reduce the costs, and that allows us to make money off of the $36 guy as well as of course, the $36 million guy.
Yeah, I'll let you know I'm the $36 guy. I'll put it out there. Why? Because I've never invested before. I've entered the business world. I'm not as business savvy as everybody else, but nevertheless, I took the gamble to try it, to see exactly what is it. And I'll say that my experience so far has been great, especially when it comes to having issues, when it comes to having certain, requests and then getting the response, the feedback has been good. But I wanted to now add to it because that is my one-on-one experience with Arawak X. But now, when you started to speak about fintech, because I noticed the words that you speak a lot is transparency and also integrity. Those are two of the words that scream out as you speak. How does fintech now, and first could you explain what fintech, the agreement that you, Arawak X and fintech has, the relationship?
Fintech TV, okay.
Fintech TV, and then could you speak how it also now will help Arawak X to continue to speak to both transparency and integrity?
Yeah, so exchanges are about transparent information. Timely, transparent information to investors. Media is supposed to be about transparent, timely information about that information. So we give raw data without any slant. So these are the numbers, they're the numbers. The interpretation of those numbers happens in a few different places. One of those places is the media. And media, their business model is they need stories to tell. And Fintech TV tells stories about fintech businesses. Now, we often hear this blockchain stuff. That is one area of fintech, but there's actually tons and tons of other types of fintech. Our Securities Commission has done a good job of setting up an environment to try and encourage more fintechs to come. So we expect to see a lot more fintechs setting up here. Hopefully, I would like to see more homegrown fintechs also developing from here, so that Fintech TV can tell their stories. Because Fintech TV has 8 million weekly viewers, mostly hedge fund managers and financial professionals in New York and London, and they tell stories about up and coming businesses.
Wow.
So now, for us, one of the things that we're trying to do with the Bahamas is turn it into the ultimate deal room. And that means that a deal room is, you can think old country club, smoking cigars. Hey, I have this business idea. Why don't you put your money in and we'll invest in I don't know, some mine in South Africa, right? That's the conjuring the thought. Well, we think the Bahamas should be the ultimate deal room where people can come to with their business and ideas to raise money for them to operate out of, and that's what the ease of doing business is about. And of course, now with Fintech TV, to be able to tell your stories so that you can go back and raise more money. And so it kind of becomes a positive feedback loop, because we have it. I mean, why are all these people over here in Albany and Lyford Key? Because this is a beautiful place. If we can just figure out how to make the pieces all fit and make sure that it's inclusive for us, have at it.
Speaking of making those pieces fit, right now, Arawak X, in its current state, are you allowed to have foreign investment?
Yes. So it was designed from the beginning for us to tap into foreign investors.
Oh, wow.
Now, practically speaking, it's been slow-ish to get that to go through because it just takes, if you think of it like, okay, this is the law degree coming out now. Okay, if you think of it as
my law hat.
Yeah, the law hat. So they're the words of the law. So there's a policy that might come out that we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but then that has to be turned into a process, and then you have to run actual use cases through that process. And as you know, that can be slow because, you know, it's like running water through a pipe that hasn't had water run through it before. Or
practical and theory. You have the theory, and now you have to figure out
how to make it work.
Yeah,
in the real world.
Yeah.
So we're still working on figuring that out. But eventually, we would like it to be a really streamlined process so that people can, like I say, raise their money here, can operate here, can live here, and then we all benefit either as investors, so we get to participate in the deals going around, or as issuers, we get to operate the companies and then raise money. So it really will create a new dynamic.
It's awesome.
And that's exactly,
I think this is a big opportunity for Bahamians. I don't think a lot of people realize it yet. More and more, they're being educated on, you know, investing in general, the average person. And I think this is like a sleeping giant. I think a lot of people have not, because it's only been a year.
Yeah, it's only been a year.
Yeah, it's only been a year.
I mean, August will make a year that we've technically launched.
Yeah, so I'm sure you guys are successful now, but I can see it exploding because the more people get educated on it, I don't think people realize what we have, like what you guys are. I think
as we educate people, ultimately, like for example, with Arawak X, we're going to actually make sure that it's a public company too.
Right.
So we're going to be owned by the investors and people that participate in it, because at the end of the day, these levels of standards and transparency I want for our corporate governance, because the last thing you want to do, the last thing I want to do as a founder of this thing is to create something and then not have the appropriate levels of transparency for us. And then, you know, because I'm not going to be here forever. Maybe 25 years, you know, but not forever. So that the next guy that comes, you know, say he's a bad apple, you know, you don't want him tearing down what we built. So so you have to build those kinds of things in as well.
That's the thing. That's the thing they say about life. You're not going to get out of it alive, right?
Death and taxes.
So, and I think, just to allude to your point, John, where persons are afraid, I think that they when you hear the word investor, it seems so daunting. Like, as I stated, like, you believe that you have to have a certain amount of money. Like, I live this type of lifestyle. It's not the middle class, or it's not high-end lifestyle. I'm afraid that I'm not able to fit within this opportunity. What does it take? I mean, we spoke about being an issuing company, what it takes to be able to issue your company for crowdfunding. What does it take to become or to be an investor?
So it first of all, it takes just we've lowered the barrier to entry where anyone can do it. So now the excuse can't be, I can't participate. I don't have the big bucks. Then the only barriers are your mind, right? So it is going to take education. It's going to take a desire to start. That's probably the hardest part. You know, people have all kinds of reasons why not to do something. And so you have to get over that yourself. But also this is a tool. You know, people think of money as, you know, something that you want to just collect as much of it, but money is really just a tool for you to live the type of life that you want. You want a house, you need enough money to buy a house. You want to send your kids off to school, you need enough money to do that. You want to go to Europe 3 times a year, you need enough money to do that. So whatever it is that you're envisioning for your life, you have to have the appropriate amount of money to do that, right? So when you look at it in that way, we all have to play the money game. So you might as well get good at it, or at least good enough so you can live the type of life that you want. And that's what ArawakX is about, just putting tools into people's hands, whether it's the businesses who need the money or investors that need returns on their money, put their money to work while they're saving for one of those things.
Right.
I'll give you a story. The first time it really dawned on me for the stock market. So my grandmother gave me $5,000, said, here, go invest this in the stock market. I was 18, just went off to college. And BP had just had that oil spill. You remember that in 2010? And their share price dipped. And I said to myself, they were talking about how this company is going to go out of business, and that was kind of the news, so the share price went down. And I knew that there was no way they were going to shut down one of the largest oil companies in the world. So I bought it at that low point. And, 3 months later, it went up, went back up, and I sold that. And I went, like all 18, 19-year-olds do, I went on a ski trip, and I balled the hell out of that money. So, because that's what I wanted at the time, right?
Yeah.
But now that I'm older and I want other things, I know to save for other things. But it's a tool for how you want to spend your money.
And you use that tool.
Oh yeah, that hot tub was nice. That hot tub was nice. But that moment taught me is that the power of the markets as savings vehicles, companies as savings vehicles, using that, using the tool. And now that as an operator, I have an intimate understanding of how different types of people use it, what they're trying to accomplish with it, and how do you balance everyone's interests so that it's win-win. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
All right. So knowing now, after getting ready to celebrate 1 year, you'd have had, I'm just listening, you'd have had areas of success, and then you had areas what I call growth.
Yeah, we're growing. We're learning.
Right, you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
With this now, and understanding the way the world is going to go, we're coming out of pandemic, so it's gonna change the way we interact. Not much, maybe technology-wise, but overall, it's still gonna be some change.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see now ArawakX in the next 5 years? And I want you to speak from a point of what should I be looking for, one as an investor, and or two as someone who's now ready to have their company come forward for crowdfunding? Yeah.
So those are really great questions. So over the next 5 years, from the investor point of view, I think of ArawakX as a supermarket. So there are going to be a ton of different products in different asset classes available for people to purchase and participate in. So that if you are the investor, if you think of your portfolio as like a conch salad, you need to go get the ingredients for a conch salad, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, chop them all up, mix it together, and that's your personal conch salad. Well, you need a place to go for that. That's what we're trying to do with ArawakX. From the issuer side, you're the guy growing all these peppers. You need buyers for those peppers, and you need a place where people go to buy it. So we would like to grow those numbers on both sides. Because it's technology and it's internet based, I'm technically only limited in this business by just certain regulatory things. That's my real limitation. But in terms of geography, I could list a company, in Nigeria. It's just as easy from a technical point of view, but from a regulatory and relationship point of view. So you're going to see us also doing a lot more international companies. We want to go into many more jurisdictions. So it's a big, bright future. 5 years is a long time.
This is more bringing companies to the market, like companies that are startups.
Yeah, it turns out this is a huge problem, not just for the Bahamas. This is a huge problem for the global South.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of opportunity to go into different places. So.
All right. So I want to ask this question. I really want you to think about this question because I know you are a sports guy.
I am a sports guy.
You are a sports guy.
Yeah.
If you were to compare ArawakX to a particular player of any sport,
okay,
who would you who would you compare them to and why?
Okay, now you've done it. So I'm a combat sports guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so combat sports are about, it's completely the underdog story, right?
Right.
There was this might be a little too. Let me use So let's use boxing. Most people know about famous boxers.
I thought he was going to go UFC. Okay.
Right. I thought he was going to go like UFC.
No, UFC is a little too.
Taekwondo, judo.
Yeah, they use boxing. The sport of kings, right? So I would compare where we are right now to Muhammad Ali's first couple of fights. If you've ever seen the first couple, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All the parts are right there, and now it's just about the refining, and then we're going to be the Muhammad Ali in the future. But to say we're there now, we're not there now, but we have all of the parts there. I think we've got our team really jamming now. We're right now we're releasing companies. We expect to be releasing new companies by the end of summer. We want to get it down to once every 2 weeks. So we're getting our mechanics going.
That's a machine right there.
That's right. I'm building a machine. That's that engineering part of my brain. So it's just about making things better, listening to investors, listening to issuers, meeting people's needs, and then just turning it into machine. Because tech businesses, why they're so hard, is that they're on the internet, and if you know the internet. There's no such thing as build it and they will come on the internet. There's too many pages, too many distractions. So that's one thing. But also, it's tech. So that means it's infinitely scalable. As long as there are ideas and as long as there are investors, which means, I can keep going and going and going and trying to make it faster and faster. So,
well, one thing I know our viewers probably would like to hear is, over this time, and I'm not talking just from an Arawak X standpoint, but now from a D'Arcy standpoint. Well, for all the previous months, years, what has been now one of the greatest lessons that you have learned?
I'm a millennial, man. So patience. You expect these things to go fast, and they do not go fast. The regulatory process was 4 years. My law degree was 4 years. All of this stuff it just takes time. And so, you just have to be persistent and do the work. I'm still a young man, and in the business world, a big part of it is just paying your dues. So just trying to pay my dues, add value to the people around me. But I know it's just a matter of time. It's time, consistency, over and over and over again. But it's that patience thing. Lord, I don't know if when I was a little kid or something I prayed for patience, but it was like one of those. It was like, and because this place is beautiful, but it's boy. There's a lot of inefficient processes around here, and we're literally forcing systems to move that haven't moved in 50 years. And so that's
that's a problem for just almost every business right now. The processes that all of these businesses sit on top of. It's extremely slow. Some don't exist sometimes. They have to be created. So but companies like yours were driving that change. So we're going to see, in the future, it's going to be a lot easier. And
let me just say, if that came off sounding like I'm blaming the government or something, I'm not. There's a lot of really wonderful people working in these positions that may have just not been exposed to newer or modern ways of doing things because they just haven't had a reason to.
But
in the
not
past.
only that, I just think it's just never been a thing. Like you say, we need exposure to certain things as the world becomes more global because of the internet. The internet has knocked down all boundaries. So the world is really one big place right now.
That's right.
I see people still using third world, like they still using that word third world. I don't even think that exists in many cases anymore because
No.
just about every country has a technology hub right now. So third world is kind of like an old saying, you know. So the internet has broken down all those barriers, and you know, it's made it a lot easier for people to explore these different opportunities.
And it's also created the opportunity for us to look outward and do international business.
Right, exactly.
Because that's where the real money is.
Yeah.
I mean, give me some of that international money.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, if you think about it, if you look at the size of the Bahamas, we're we're like a city. You know what I mean?
Suburb.
In most
Suburb.
countries, you know. So, if you are able, and this is one of the reasons why I ask: are you allowed to, you know, have outside companies on your platform? Because then that would give Bahamians, people like me, average people, the opportunity to invest outside in companies
Go get some of that
in
money.
the beginning, because it's hard. It's extremely hard to get involved in that startup.
Well, it's a national conversation. I can tell you that this administration, the last administration, were both geared towards making the Bahamas more of an international business hub.
Right.
So it is a process, but like I said, you can write the policy paper.
Yeah.
You could put down the processes and people in them, but until you start moving companies and investors through these processes, you're not going to be able to get the efficiencies that we all would like to just click our fingers and
But we won't
say
get there
it.
unless we do it. So
That's
we gotta-
correct.
we gotta
That's
do it,
correct.
you
So we
know?
just got to do it.
See, that's what the internet did to us. So it provided, it knocked down all those boundaries, but it put within us that we want it right now.
Yeah.
So
Well, so the most famous internet company right now is probably Amazon, right?
Yeah.
We all think 2-day shipping.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like you got to remember, it started off at 6 weeks.
Yeah.
This is in the early 2000s, and then they were able to get it down to like a week, and then finally down to 2 weeks. But it took them 20-something years to get to that.
Yeah.
So
It is.
you just have to find, well,
And I only got involved with them when they were two. So they've already, when I started knowing who were really.
Prime was already there.
Right, Prime was already there when I really started getting into it. Well, I know we understand what Arawak X was doing.
Mhm.
We do appreciate all of you putting in your resources, your time to, as you state, to add value. And it's adding value greater than I believe that you or your team would understand, especially for those of us who do not have that type of background. And but you're providing the knowledge, you're providing the opportunity, and even though to the point where you are having, I don't want to say classes, but you were having like webinar sessions at your office,
Mhm.
where you could have booked times to come in. So we want you to know that we do appreciate it, because your goal of for financial inclusivity is a big one. It's huge for us.
Yeah.
Right, it's really huge for us. So we want to say thank you very much for what you're doing, and we look forward. I know I specifically look forward for what Arawak X is going to do in the upcoming future. I'm already getting my resources prepared. So as soon as I see it coming,
Definitely.
because one thing I'll tell you is when it hits, when you get that notification that there's an opportunity to invest, even though it says 90 days, in 30 days it could be shut down.
that's correct. That's correct. And by the way, that's my job, is to make it so. So I'm actually, I do want in the next year or two to have these raises come up, and they just go up and they come down, down. Because I'm, like I say, I'm it's my engineering part of my brain now. It's about turning this into a machine, you know. I got a Honda right now, and I want to be driving a Ferrari. So, you know.
Well, as you say, you got to put in the work, stay consistent. And one thing that I've gotten out of this is transparency and integrity. And if persons were outside of Arawak X, if persons with companies, small or large, use these same values of transparency and integrity, then you would actually start to see the outcomes that you were looking for, the results. And I have to add to this, with the consistency of doing so.
Yeah. Because what people don't understand is when you have this many stakeholders in your business, you don't just have to solve these problems by yourself. You have a network of people and their networks to bring to bear to your problem. And in a business context, that means the mission of the company and adding value to its customers, because no man is an island and nobody knows all of this stuff by themselves. It's just impossible. It's just too much. So you need networks of people with a vested interest in seeing you succeed. And then it's up to the market to decide. But at least you're positioning yourself in the best place possible.
So just could you let the audience know how
now for my sales
invest?
pitch, right?
Yes, now for the sales pitch.
If you want to sign up, the accounts are free to sign up. Go to ArawakX.com, ArawakX.com. Everything is accessed through the portal there. We're working on it constantly to improve it. So it is in a living, breathing thing itself. So if there's any issues or you have any concerns, you can always feel free to reach out to us. We're real people. Our offices are in Sandyport, so you can find us. Just if you're going to bring a baseball bat, give me a heads up. No, but in all seriousness, you can find us. We're transparent. We're here so that we serve this vital role of linking issuers to investors and making sure it's done in a transparent way.
Beautiful. Awesome. You guys take advantage of this because, like I said, we as Bahamians don't have the opportunity to invest not only in our own companies, but we don't have the opportunity to invest in general as easy as it is that they're making it for us. So, thank you for keep innovating, man, because companies like yours are what's propelling our country forward, just bringing in new ideas, trying new things. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you guys didn't know whether this was going to be a success or failure, but you went ahead and did the risk, and now it's a success. So, we just want to thank you guys, man. It's been awesome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Thank you.